在如何提升听众参与度 Part 2的单元，我们来谈谈做完简报后要用什么样的语言来鼓励听众的参与，还有如果不会回答的问题该要怎么回应呢？ Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管双语沟通力的 Podcast。 我们希望带给大家最实用的沟通工具，包括了成功人士对全球市场的分享，职场英语的技能，跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。 Hi, I'm Sherry, founder of Executive Plus. As a language trainer and certified coach, I've trained hundreds of managers from Fortune 500 companies such as Dior, Google, Deloitte, and Yahoo.
And I'm Nick, Director of Communication Strategy at Presentality. I've helped startups raise millions of US dollars in funding and train the executives of publicly listed companies to present on the global stage.
Welcome to the Executive Plus podcast,
where you can take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everyone, welcome back to Executive Plus Podcast, episode 57. This episode is part 2 of our 2-part series on handling the dreaded dead silence of a conference call. So, last time we covered things like how to get going, how to keep people engaged during the presentation, and now we're going to look at how to close out, how to get discussion going, and how to answer questions you don't have an answer for.
所以在今天的单元，我们特别要加强的就是，当你已经做完这个 presentation， 你还是有什么方法能够让你的听众能够来参与啊，问问题，或者是提供他的一些意见。那接下来也就是，当对方问了一个问题是你真的不知道该怎么回答的时候，有没有一些小技巧能够帮助你，就是不会觉得非常 awkward， 有的时候面对那么多的人，然后你讲不出来该怎么办，所以一些小小的技巧能够分享给大家。So we're going to start with, at the end of the presentation, how do you still get people to ask you questions?
You've finished everything, you've talked, you felt like you said you had to say, and then you go, does anyone have any questions? 90% of the time, what you're going to get is nothing.
Nothing.
Which is always awkward, because again, it's that moment of, did they understand? Are they still there? Did I lose my internet connection? Part of the magic behind asking end questions is by not making it so general. If you have a very ambitious or you have a very outspoken person, they may jump in there, but it doesn't mean that will always happen. One of the key ideas is you really should direct questions or specify questions. Meaning, if you say something like, thank you for joining me, does anyone have any questions? You probably won't get much of a feedback. But if you say something like, on my last point, I made this statement, or I made this plan, would anyone like to give some suggestions or feedback on how I could do this part better? Something like that. Because you're specifying down to something you're looking for feedback for. Not in general, what do I want feedback on? It's for this part, what do I want feedback on?
所以我觉得这个 tip 非常的好，因为有的时候很多人会问嘛，有什么问题？我相信有时候突然间，因为这个问题太广了，你没有办法突然间想到了一个很好的 question， 你可能就会 hold back， 你想说先让别人问问看，我再来问好了。所以这个时候通常为什么会一片 silence， 就是因为这样子。但你在问问题的时候，如果你很 specific， 是专对于你可能刚刚讲的哪一个 point， 或者是哪一个 key takeaway， 或者是哪一个 solution， 或者是你的 proposal 中间其中的一个 point，这个时候大家可以给你的 feedback 就非常的 focus。 那我觉得这样子的方法其实会更多人会想要来发言。
By being specific, as Sherry said, on the solution, on the problem, or like the timeline, you're giving someone a window. Yeah. Ideally, maybe you want a discussion on the larger topic, but giving someone a window to start that always helps. Like, does anyone have any questions about the timeline itself? Now, if you're still getting silence or you're not feeling the discussion is as engaging or as insightful as you would hope, you can actually direct questions at people. In a person-to-person conference situation, there's a likelihood that not everyone will speak up, even they have something to say. So you can, in that situation, you might point out to get feedback from a specific person, a specific department. But on a conference call, you should especially do this because when everyone's kind of hiding behind their computer, they're less likely to speak out or feel comfortable speaking out on a certain issue. So by directing and going, I was wondering if Sherry from the marketing department has anything to add about the timeline. Or, I was wondering if we can hear from Andrew. Your input would be really greatly appreciated.
And I think on top of that, 当我们在 direct 我们的 question， 那你可以，我觉得这个时候可以稍微有点小技巧，就做一些，比如说你可以说，如果我们要问问题，要问 Nick 好了，我们可以说 Nick, you spend a lot of time working on a similar project, and I'm sure you have a lot to offer.Would you like to give us some insight or any suggestions on this matter? 就是搭配一点 稍微一点 compliment. 那我这样子我觉得其实会让对方更愿意的来 offer 他们的一些 input.
Yeah, it's like that compliment and appreciating their experience and hoping that their feedback will reflect into what you want to do. So for the last section of this series,Let's talk a little bit about something that you got hit with recently when talking to people about their problems during conference calls. And that is, what happens if during this Q&A discussion, you don't actually have an answer on hand, or you don't feel comfortable getting that answer? What can people do to smooth out that sort of awkward silence of not being able to answer?
我觉得这种常常发生啊，我相信 everyone agrees with that. You will always get a question that you really need time. 不是说你可能完全不知道怎么讲，而是你需要时间去 process, 你需要去细想你该怎么去回答这个问题才是比较好的。尤其是当你在那么多人的 conference room 之下，你可能会觉得好像可能不是很 appropriate. 因为I think a lot of people in the corporate world, you know that sometimes it's a little bit dangerous to make some kind of statement in front of a lot of people. 所以这个时候当然通常我们都会先要稍微 back up a little bit. 那我们需要给自己多一点时间. So one thing to give yourself more time to think about it, 这个时候就是你可以 rephrasing the question.那我觉得这个是在我美国所学到，我觉得美国人非常厉害会做这个 rephrasing the questions. Giving yourself like a few seconds of the time. So, 比如说好了，你可以这样讲 Oh, I see. So what you're asking is 像这样 Or you can say, if I understand you correctly, you want to know 就是把他们的 question 再重新讲一遍。或者你可以讲 Oh, could you rephrase your question?直接就请对方再问一次，这个时候你就可以顺便的就是给自己多点时间去想一下这个问题。
Yeah, this is definitely a skill that we get taught a lot of times growing up when learning how to do presentation and Q&A. Because there are situations where you are clarifying, but there are other situations where you're just like, crap, okay, I need to think about this or I need to process.Sometimes, if you only need a short time to process, you can be like, let me think about that for just a second, and then go back and answer the question. But this is also a great way to double check and make sure I understand you correctly. This is what you're asking. And then when they go into that clarification mode, that's your moment to think, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's say I don't actually know the answer. How do I handle this kind of question? Well, the best thing to do is just be honest. But it's not a matter of saying, I don't know. It's a matter of, I don't know with a follow-up. It's not, I don't know. It's, I don't know right now, but I'll go figure it out.
Yeah.
So you could say something like, sorry, that's not within my field. Or I'm sorry, that's not within the scope of the project that I'm working on. But I'm sure I can point you to the right direction or to the right person to help answer that question. Another way to phrase that might be like, I'm afraid I'm not in a position to answer that right now. Perhaps this person could help. Or perhaps we could schedule a follow-up discussion so that you and I can jump into that question.
因为这样的方式，虽然你没有办法完全现在的就去回答，或者你无法回答这个问题，但是你给人家了一个 direction, you know, 另外一个 team 或者是另外一个人他可以帮忙，那你帮他们做这个牵线，我觉得其实这个不会让任何人觉得说 you know, oh, you're no help at all. You're still helping them. You're still answering the question in a way, right? But you're just kind of give them a direction, a sense of direction to what's going to follow after that.
A lot of this comes back to some people feel that it's inappropriate or they're insecure about saying, I don't know. I don't know is not necessarily the problem. It's the problem of I don't know and it doesn't sound like I'm going to go figure out. So the goal becomes, I don't know right now, but we'll go figure it out, or I will send you to a person who can answer that question.
就是后续的 action plan.
Right, action.
So last thing, 最后一个就是当然如果这个问题这个 question 是你必须要在私下来解决，那我觉得其实你就可以讲说 you know, could we talk about this after the meeting privately? I don't want to take up everyone's time. 我觉得加上 I don't want to take up everyone's time 非常的重要，因为如果你只讲说can we talk about this privately? 你可能会让其他的9个人觉得说你们是不是要讲什么悄悄话，是我不能听到的。Are you guys talking about something about us, you know, that, you know, confidential, but I kind of want to know now? 其实你可以就讲I don't want to take up everyone's time, right? 这个是你只是 you know, being very respectful and sensitive of everyone's time. That's all.
Yeah. Or you can just say, I don't think it's necessary for us to discuss this as a group. That may just be between your department and my department. Can we find another time to talk about this? But you're just basically clarifying that this is not the right time to talk about it because it doesn't need to take everyone's time. It doesn't need everyone in the room to discuss. So just, you know, calling that out. I think this is more like a marketing and R&D discussion. Can we find another time to talk about that?
所以我们今天就讲到了在你做完你的 presentation 你该怎么样 direct 你的 question， 在接下来就是当你被问到问题你不知道该怎么回答的时候你可以用什么方法去回应。 So I really hope you guys really enjoy this episode and previous episode if you have not listened to it. And yeah, have a great meetings and great presentation online, everyone.
We hope no more dead silence for you in your next meeting. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
如果你喜欢我们的 podcast， 欢迎来追踪我们的主管英文 Executive Plus 的 Facebook。那也可以写信到我们的信箱 yourcareerplus@gmail.com。